Over 60? Discover 4 shocking carbs to avoid forever and 4 amazing ones that transform your health. Evelyn stared at the glossy magazine cover, her heart racing with a cocktail of curiosity and dread. The perfect life she once embraced had become an intricate web of loss and routine. Night after night, she poured her grief into cookies, pies, and cakes, each bite a temporary distraction from the chasm left by her husband's absence. But now, those sugary treats seemed to symbolize not just comfort, but concern. The doctor's words echoed in her mind. "Your health is at risk, Evelyn." She could almost feel the weight of her choices pressing down on her shoulders. Growing up, her mother's lessons had been steeped in tradition, painting food as love. Yet, as she kneaded dough at midnight, mixing sugar with longing, she began questioning if this age-old practice was shaping her body and her future more harmfully than she had ever intended. Doubt tinged her reflections, darkening her kitchen sanctuary. Was it sheer will that kept her standing behind that beloved oven, or was it fear pulling her back from a different path, a path toward healing? On a cool autumn afternoon, Evelyn's routine met a jolt of clarity when her neighbor Betty leaned over the garden fence, affectionately brushing a stray leaf from Evelyn's shoulder. Betty, with her gentle conviction, began discussing nutrition, a world that Evelyn had hardly considered. "Not all carbs are the same, you know," Betty said, her voice steady as she dug into the topic. Fascination bubbled up. The idea of healthier alternatives began to burn within Evelyn like a tiny spark. A spark of determination ignited by the contrasting truths she'd been ignoring. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." Her mind raced, caught in a whirlwind of exhilaration and unease. The image of her schoolchildren and the joy she felt teaching flooded her memories, juxtaposed against her current fear of betrayal. Betraying the values she loved and the community that had once lifted her up. What if she could replace her sugary offerings with nutrition-rich choices at the bake sale? Could she share her findings, or would it invite ridicule? Her breath quickened just thinking about it. Standing in front of the church, surrounded by baked goods that carried whispers of nostalgia, she felt her pulse quicken as she presented her new creation, a whole-grain muffin that was dense yet brimming with wholesome ingredients. Silence engulfed her as her friends eyed her offering with skepticism. Every frown felt like a small stab, the ghosts of shared recipes haunting her with their judgment. This was more than a muffin. It was her manifesto, a declaration of independence from old habits that had coddled with a sense of belonging. Could she truly step away from long-standing traditions? The oppressive weight of friendship versus health hung heavy in the air. How could she navigate the rifts that might form, the friendships she cherished for decades? Evelyn's hands trembled, her resolve clashing with doubt. Here she stood, at the fork in the road. Embrace her new identity, or yield to the comforting embrace of the past? Her heart thundered, drowning out everything but the fear that whispered through her. The bake sale loomed large in her mind, the finality pressing down like a storm on the horizon. Would she crumble under the weight of acceptance, or rise, unfurling into an uncertain future? Evelyn's breath hitched as she stood before the curious crowd, their eyes tracing every move she made and assessing every aspect of her humble muffin. She had poured not only ingredients, but fragments of her soul into that baked good. Tension crackled in the air, each moment stretching painfully. As an educator, she had always welcomed scrutiny, Feedback was essential for growth. Yet today, the stakes felt far higher. This wasn't about teaching students. This was about redefining who she was. As conversations resumed around her, filled with laughter and familiar banter, Evelyn felt like an outsider in a place that had once felt like home. She forced herself to breathe, deciphering the thoughts swirling in her mind. Was she truly ready to challenge the norms, to be an outlier in a set tradition? The smiles of her friends weighed heavily in comparison to the hollow ache of potential rejection that gnawed at her. Her heart clamored, urging her to take this leap, while a small voice whispered doubts. Hadn't she always been the one who conformed, who baked from the heart? That was where her conflict lay, like a tempest brewing within. Baking had woven her life together, but perhaps it was time to weave a different narrative, one of self-care and renewal. With each passing moment, the realization solidified that her affection for food had dulled over time, entangled in grief and expectation. The cherished recipes of her past, which carried familial love, now felt like shackles. In an impulsive moment, she reached for her muffin, now poised on the table, and took a step forward, ready to share her reasoning. The dynamics shifted as she spoke. "I wanted to try something different," she began, surprising even herself with the steadiness of her voice. "These muffins are packed with whole grains and fruits. They're healthier than the sugary treats we're used to, and I'd love your honest feedback." The murmurs faded, and several friends leaned closer, curiosity lighting their expressions.
Evelyn sensed a shift in the room, a cautious interest woven with hesitation. The contradiction of it all spurred her on. As she gestured toward her creation, she couldn't help but notice Betty's approving nod from across the table. There was something undeniably liberating about sharing her new perspective, even if only tentatively. Then came the moment of truth. One by one, her friends picked up the muffins, examining them as if they were newly discovered artifacts. Evelyn's heart raced in sync with their chewing, reading each micro-expression that flitted across their faces. Would they recoil at the taste, offended by her audacity? Or would they find her concoction surprisingly delightful? A ripple of laughter interrupted her contemplation as one friend exclaimed, "This is actually really good, Evelyn." The hint of surprise, mixed with joy, sent a jolt of electricity through her. The fear she had grappled with began to dissolve, replaced by the exhilaration of acceptance. Yet, as the compliments flowed, she felt an unexpected pang of remorse. Would this change be welcomed only for its taste, or would they understand the intention behind her choice? For Evelyn, the stakes of baked goods had evolved from mere recipes to a manifesto of healing. But healing could bring discomfort to those who resisted change. She could feel her community sifting through the new layers she had forged, critical perhaps, but hopeful for the prospect of evolution. With the initial round of sampling coming to a close, Evelyn understood this was more than a test of taste. It was a step toward a broader transformation. Yet, as she watched her friends discuss her muffins with animated chatter, a lingering question clung to her like an unwanted shadow. What if this was only the beginning of a deeper confrontation with the very friendship she cherished? Feeling emboldened, she made a mental note to embrace her newfound direction more fully. Yet uncertainty loomed. How would the dissenters react as her journey unfolded? The culmination of the bake sale? Perhaps just a mere beginning. The time had come to face her past, but was she ready to confront the doubts lurking within her own heart and within the community she loved? Evelyn took a moment to process the positive feedback. It was exhilarating yet unsettling. Her friends' compliments echoed in her mind, intertwining with her doubts. While a part of her basked in the warmth of acceptance, another part wrestled with insecurity. Had she simply met their expectations, or had she indeed sparked the deeper change she so desperately desired? In the days that followed, the baked goods lingered in her thoughts, serving as a catalyst for a broader reflection. Each time she pulled out a favorite recipe, the routine felt both familiar and strange, like slipping into an old coat that no longer fit. She began to question her commitments, both in baking and in life. The kitchen had always been her escape, a place where she expressed herself through flour and sugar, but now it felt like a battleground of conflicting identities. With renewed resolve, Evelyn set aside traditional recipes and embarked on creating healthier alternatives. She spent late nights experimenting with chickpea flour, honey, and crushed nuts, imbuing each new muffin with the essence of her evolving self. Each batch was a step further into uncharted territory, a testament to her refusal to remain stagnant. However, the excitement was often accompanied by anxiety. Every time she shared her new creations with friends and family, she held her breath, waiting for their reactions. Would they embrace her culinary transformation or recoil at her deviation from beloved classics? In moments where courage slipped away, she found herself second-guessing. Did she really want to forge a path onto which others might not follow? One evening, filled with both trepidation and eagerness, she invited a few close friends over to taste her latest innovations, hoping they could appreciate the thought and effort behind her vision. The kitchen filled with the scent of cinnamon and fruit, creating an atmosphere both inviting and vulnerable. She laid out her muffins like offerings, her heart thumping with a potent mix of fear and anticipation as they arrived. As her friends nibbled, their expressions flitted between surprise and delight, much like before. Yet there was something deeper this time, a sense of acknowledgement that had been absent in previous taste tests. Conversation stemmed from the flavors, branching out into discussions about health, choices, and even aging. "You know," said one friend, "this makes me think about how we've always just baked what we know. Maybe we should try to shake things up more often." Evelyn felt a familiar warmth spreading inside her. Their words urged her to dig deeper, igniting a flicker of hope that she might influence not just their palates, but their perspectives as well. However, a shadow of doubt crept in once more. Was she straying too far from the soul of their friendship in her desire for transformation? As the evening progressed, its lightness began to give way to tension. One of her friends, less enthusiastic than the others, voiced her disappointment. "I just miss the old muffins," she said, her tone tinged with nostalgia. "They had a comfort that these just can't match." In that moment, Evelyn felt exposed. The challenge of modernizing recipes began to feel like a personal affront. Did she want to rewrite the narrative of friendship, embodied in those muffins, built over years of shared traditions? While her other friends rallied to defend her, the crack in their laughter sent painful reverberations through her heart. Leaving the gathering that night, Evelyn grappled with conflicted emotions. Had she crossed a bridge she couldn't uncross?
Feeling the weight of her choices, she resolved to confront her inner voices of doubt and insecurity fully. In the days that followed, a clarity began to crystallize. Finding harmony between her past and future meant they both deserved recognition, and her endeavor wasn't about discarding old comforts, but sharing new beginnings. However, that didn't lessen the struggle. Evelyn gathered her thoughts, ready to face her friends again. The deeper conversations she yearned for were just around the corner, but she anticipated resistance. Could she forge a new understanding, or would she forever be caught between honoring her past and embracing her future? The next batch of muffins awaited her, and with it the possibility of a fresh start. Would she have the courage to redefine her relationships while staying true to herself? The moment of truth was approaching. Evelyn awoke to the soft light of dawn filtering through her kitchen window, casting gentle shadows over her familiar space. The silence felt different today, charged with the tension of a week spent ruminating on her choices. The smell of fresh coffee brewed in the air, and she could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the tension from that fateful gathering lingering like a specter in the background. Sipping her coffee, she focused on her goals. Today marked the start of her new direction, not just for her muffins, but for her life. She couldn't help but consider that if she could redefine what it meant to celebrate in her baking, perhaps it would extend to other facets of her life. With her heart racing, Evelyn began to list strategic intentions in her mind. Connect her art with health, explore culinary identity authentically, and, most critically, engage her friends in dialogues that challenge their perspectives. She opened her recipe notebook, pages filled with more marked crossings than completed concepts. The last time she examined these notes, uncertainty had loomed. Now she sought clarity. Each entry represented not just a recipe, but a commitment to herself and to her friends, to take collective growth seriously. With razor-sharp focus, she decided her next move would be both culinary and conversational, a two-pronged approach to tackle both the food and the skepticism that tended to accompany it. Evelyn dusted off her mixer, revamping her workspace as if shedding old skin. She envisioned a new concept: muffin workshops, interactive experiences where she would lead her friends through every creation, explaining each choice she made. This collaborative angle allowed for connection and understanding, fostering not just acceptance of her innovations, but engagement with the ideas behind them. She dug into her ingredients, each carefully selected for its role in varying the nutritional profile of her recipes. As she mixed and measured, a flow state enveloped her. Her actions began to align with her intentions. The sound of clinking bowls and the rhythmic thumping of her mixer created a meditative backdrop while she contemplated the messages she hoped to convey about health, balance, and a more mindful approach to eating. Before the final baking session, Evelyn set up a group chat, crafting a message that would become her bridge to her friends. "Excited to share my latest muffin journey. I'd love for you all to come over, not just to taste, but to create together. It's time we really talked about comfort and new beginnings." Each word felt empowering. She pressed send, reminding herself this was as much about inviting her friends into her evolving world as it was about sharing her creations. Later that day, Evelyn found herself pacing while awaiting responses, battling an old urge to retreat into certainty. Would they see the opportunity, or would they cling to nostalgia? The ball was rolling. She had set the stage for something new, but the ghost of doubt still clung to her. Moments ticked by, the echo of her phone vibrating, tearing through her anticipation. The replies poured in, a mix of supportive emojis and enthusiastic affirmations. Relief washed over her, yet a layer of surreal doubt lingered. Would this acceptance lead to genuine comprehension or merely surface-level curiosity? With baking trays lined, she reminded herself that the journey would be laden with challenges. As she slid the muffins into the oven, the aroma rapidly filled her kitchen, and she couldn't help but smile. This was it. The act of creating was intertwined with confronting vulnerability. But just as everything began to settle, her mind flickered back to the critical voice of the friend who expressed disappointment. Could her recreations resonate on a deeper level, or was she about to walk an unsteady path that could alienate as much as it could unite? The time had come, she had extended her reach, and now awaited the truth her friends might bring. Would they embrace her vision, or would the weight of the past threaten to stifle her aspirations forever? The answer loomed, waiting just beyond the next batch. Evelyn leaned against the counter, the fragrant warmth of her kitchen mingling with the tension clinging to her thoughts. The muffins were rising to perfection, yet a different kind of rising was bubbling within her. The anticipation of tomorrow's gathering intensified with each tick of the clock. The chance to bridge her creativity with shared experience had never felt more critical. But lingering doubts tangled with her enthusiasm. Would this budding idea manifest itself in reality, or merely lead to another disappointment? Images of her friends flitted through her mind, their contrasting reactions replaying like fragments of a film. Some faces sparkled with excitement over the invitation, while others shadowed with skepticism, a mix of support and disbelief. Evelyn inhaled sharply, the aroma of cinnamon a sharp contrast to her anxieties. Each ingredient she employed embodied her ethos, but would her friends appreciate her choices, or were they merely expecting the same old gilded recipes draped in nostalgia? As the timer dinged, she found herself propelled into action. She envisioned not just a baking session, but a transformation, a delicate dance where every mix, every whip was an attempt to weave new narratives into their shared history. She needed to provide a platform for constructive conversations about change, a line that would help them explore their perceptions alongside her creations. The cooling muffins were her canvases, a centerpiece for the conversations she hoped to stir. Perhaps it was time to challenge them, to confront the very fabric of their established beliefs on comfort food. Eagerly, she planned to introduce them to wild rice muffins, packed with nuts and seeds, a stark contrast to their favorite sugar-laden treats. It was as much about taste as it was about ideology. She quietly mulled over how to lead them through it. Evelyn willed herself to remain grounded. She gathered her notes and recipes, meticulously writing down talking points, potential questions, and the premises she aimed to convey. The dialogue wouldn't simply center around ingredients. It would delve into the philosophical realm of health, life choices, and the art of shifting perspectives. Could she empower them to see food as a vehicle for deeper connections rather than mere indulgence? Despite her resolutions, each scribbled word in her notebook brought forth a fresh wave of doubt. What if they didn't engage? What if they resisted the new and clung to their familiar flavor profiles, thus trapping her vision under a heavy lid of nostalgia? She pushed the errant thoughts aside, bolstered by a quiet mantra blooming in her mind: growth thrives on discomfort. As midnight quelled the bustling world outside, Evelyn strategized her responses to potential pushbacks. She envisioned the critical remarks resurrecting themselves, ready to challenge her assertiveness. But in her bones, she felt an unfamiliar resilience blossoming. Suddenly, the prospect of facing her friends took on a new guise, a thrilling confrontation where confrontation might be the catalyst for insight. Would they respond to her courage with understanding, or would they sidestep the challenge? The weight of her ambitions bore down as she prepared her mise en place for the following day's workshop. She needed to remember that she was crafting more than just muffins. She was shaping a narrative. With thoughts swirling, she considered how best to frame the dialogue. Inviting her friends to share their thoughts would not only validate their experiences, but also affirm her own journey of self-discovery. As the clock inched toward dawn, the kitchen settled, a quiet reminder of her purpose.
Evelyn's heart thudded with anticipation, and with every flicker of her mind, she embraced the idea that transformation, while not easy, was profoundly important. But as her spirit surged with newfound determination, a pop-up notification illuminated her phone screen, catching her off guard and sending a bolt of tension rippling through her. One message held the potential to shift everything, a critical response from the very friend whose doubts haunted her. "I hope this isn't just another fad," it read ominously. Evelyn took a deep breath as the stakes shifted, her resolve now intertwined with uncertainty. The moment of truth threatened to overshadow her preparations. Would this dialogue catalyze growth or unleash a storm that could dismantle her aspirations before they even had a chance to rise? Evelyn's fingers hovered over her phone screen, heart racing as she stared at the message that demanded a response. That single line felt like a tipping point, a challenge wrapped in skepticism. Uncertainty wrapped tightly around her throat, squeezing out her ability to breathe deeply. She had invested so much energy into this gathering, believing in its potential, but now doubts ran rampant, suffocating her confidence. Could she receive this blow and still stand firm in her convictions? The idea that her endeavor could be reduced to a mere fad felt like a slap across her face. It threatened to unravel the careful plan she had built for tomorrow, a plan not just for baking, but for breaking barriers. She took another deep breath and began to formulate a reply. Would it be defensive, or could she use this moment to educate? Evelyn realized that this was not just about defending her choices. It was a crucial moment, a chance to clarify her intentions. Yet the trickle of anxiety urged her to hesitate. What if her friend was right? What if this gathering didn't lead to the enlightenment she envisioned, but instead ignited arguments and reinforced their entrenched beliefs? Evelyn's mind raced through the ramifications of tomorrow's interactions. Relying on familiarity was like walking a tightrope. Every step she had taken in redefining their shared understanding of comfort food also meant teetering on the brink of risk. The muffins, bold in their intention, now felt heavy in spirit. They could be either a symbol of evolution or a catalyst for contention. With a flick of her wrist, she scrolled through past conversations with her friend, seeking clarity on what might resonate. One thread pulled at her, a memory of their last animated kitchen session where laughter danced alongside flour dusting their noses. In that moment, she had dared to introduce exotic spices, and instead of rejection, they had reveled in discovery. The laughter and insight encouraged her to seize the potential of this gathering, turning doubt into determination. After a moment of contemplation, she typed, "This isn't just about food. It's about experiencing something new together." The seconds stretched as she hesitated before hitting send. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, urging her to embrace courage over fear. With one decisive tap, she let the message fly into the digital ether. She took a moment to reflect on her resolve. What she truly wanted was not merely a successful gathering, but an opportunity for everyone, including herself, to explore uncharted territories in their relationship with food. It required bravery to step beyond the visible boundary of comfort. But could she guide her friends across that divide? Evelyn turned back to her kitchen, the sights and smells intertwining into a familiar comfort. Each muffin was a reflection of her aspirations, a tangible representation of risk and reward. She shifted her focus back to her notes, now seeing them as a foundation, a framework rather than a rigid mandate. She envisioned conversations actually evolving around the muffins, with each bite as a bridge toward deeper understanding. But the flicker of anxiety persisted, whispering that there would be resistance, challenges that loomed like heavy clouds over her ambitions. In the evening light, she felt the pull of her old self, the one that fragmented in moments of confrontation, the one that instinctively shielded herself from criticism. As she measured out ingredients, her internal dialogue began to shift. She reminded herself that discomfort was integral to growth. Maybe her friends would take umbrage, or perhaps they would embrace the unfamiliar and transform their perspectives. Even if they flinched at the wild rice muffins, she could plant seeds of curiosity. That opportunity for change was worth it, she told herself. Evelyn grabbed the muffin tin, ice-cold steel against her palm. There was no turning back. Her vision hovered just out of reach, daring her to fully embrace the challenge. But with every passing moment, the question remained, how far could she truly lead them beyond the comfort they clung to? As dusk descended, irrevocable, tension coiled in her gut. Evelyn prepared to dismantle the familiar and invite an unpredictable exploration. Tomorrow loomed before her, a crucible for conflict or connection. But then a faint ping signaled another message arriving. What now? She wondered if this one would provide clarity or perhaps deepen the uncertainty she was trying to navigate. The moment Evelyn's phone pinged again, a shiver of anticipation raced through her. She felt a mix of curiosity and dread, wondering who had messaged her this time. With cautious fingers, she opened the thread and blinked at the message on the screen. Her friend Rachel offering playful banter about dietary choices alongside an article link. Evelyn's heart sank slightly. It felt like a distraction, a way to sidestep the deeper conversation they needed to have about tomorrow. It was as if Rachel knew the tension swirling within her and was trying to lightheartedly brush it away with laughter when there was so much at stake. But then, amidst the knots of anxiety, a flicker of opportunity sparked in Evelyn's thoughts. Perhaps this playful approach could be an entry point to address the larger issue head-on without it feeling confrontational.
At its core, laughter was a bridge, as soothing and connecting as a warm loaf fresh from the oven. She pondered her next move, knowing she stood at a crossroads. Responding with a playful jab could draw them closer, but what if it also led them further from the meaning she hoped to share? It could dissipate the tension, but also allow her to dodge potential heat. However, if she incorporated her vision into this light exchange, she might peel back the barriers with a pinch of humor. Pulling the melting butter from the fridge, Evelyn decided to craft a response that would honor the spirit of their banter while also nudging the conversation toward the deeper connection she sought. Her fingers glided over the keyboard. Food and carbs might have been the topic in college, but tomorrow's muffins are where the real transformation is. Are you ready to venture into the world of wild rice? With a rush, she sent the message, her heart pounding in her chest like a steady drumbeat urging her forward. Instantly, a flood of fear enveloped her. What if she miscalculated? What if her attempt at levity did nothing but mask the looming conflict instead of addressing it? As she continued preparing the ingredients, her thoughts wandered back to the wild rice muffins. Each tiny grain felt like a metaphor for her aspirations. She had spent countless hours fine-tuning this recipe, layering flavors born from her travels, experiences, and dreams. Each muffin a reflection of her journey through uncertainty and growth. This simple act of baking had grown into something profoundly symbolic. Yet she wrestled with the tension of sharing it with others, fearing they might dismiss what she genuinely believed could be transformative. She glanced around her kitchen, her sanctuary, where the warmth and comfort of baked goods had always provided comfort. But was it enough? As the timer ticked down with impatient insistence, she fought back the question that clawed at her mind. Did her kitchen hold the power to shift perspectives? Could her friends see past the surface and embrace the risk of the new? Evelyn placed the last of the muffin batter into the tin. As she did, she imagined what tomorrow could hold. A collection of conversations, laughter, resistance, and perhaps moments of clarity. She had to let them experience what she felt was possible, even if it meant facing discomfort along the way. With steady resolve, she pulled her phone close, double-checking the time for tomorrow's gathering. Each second resonated with gravity, forging an understanding inside her.
This wasn't just about baking. It was about forging pathways of understanding. She realized that clarity would not just emerge from the muffins, but from the conversations that would swirl around them. Wiping her hands on a towel, Evelyn took a deep breath. She had prepared as much as she could. But one thought persisted, each repetition weighing heavily. Was she ready to face her friends, not just as an organizer, but as a catalyst for change? Would they be willing to step beyond their comfort zones? The uncertainty wrapped around her like a cocoon, and she felt both terrified and exhilarated at the potential that lay just ahead. As she mulled over her reflections, a new message chimed in, jolting her from her thoughts. This time it was from Michael, one of the more traditionally minded friends she deeply respected. Who knew what could come next? Evelyn blinked at Michael's message, her heart racing anew. The playful title he'd sent felt like an irony thick enough to slice with a knife. Here he was, urging her towards health advice that sounded just as superficial as Rachel's banter. Was this a genuine attempt to engage, or just another distraction? Sitting back, she considered her options. Responding to Michael could either validate his concerns or push him further toward stubbornness. But one thing was clear. Tomorrow's gathering was about more than just muffins, and Michael's perspective, traditionally minded as it was, represented resistance she desperately needed to address. His views had always been a foil to her more experimental approaches, and now that she was about to put her heart on display, the stakes felt higher than ever. Evelyn took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. Maybe it's time to confront the traditional mindset head-on, she thought. She had spent years navigating through uncomfortable conversations, years of teaching oneself to find strength in vulnerability. If she could channel her anxiety properly, perhaps she could hone in on that dynamic in a positive way. Tapping back into her phone, she typed carefully, "Michael, I appreciate the concern, but let's talk about why this muffin matters tomorrow. It's not just about what's in it. It's about what's possible when we step out of our dietary boxes. Can't wait to see you." Once sent, the message felt like a stone cast into still waters. It might ripple outwards. She enjoyed the thought of provoking curiosity rather than retreating to her usual safe conversations. With renewed focus, she began organizing her ingredients, energetically moving around the kitchen, each motion a reset of her own mindset. Baking had always been her language of transformation. Every whisk and fold symbolized rebirth. As she measured the wild rice, a thought struck her. Each grain had once seemed indifferent, yet with time and preparation, it could come together to create something nourishing, not just physically but emotionally.
This analogy matched her yearning desire to show her friends that growth often arises from discomfort. She felt a surge of determination surge through her. "I can mold the narrative around these muffins," she concluded, her fingers gliding over the bowls and utensils with newfound conviction. Just like the rice, our perspectives can evolve if we let them. The clock ticked away relentlessly, each second inching her closer to the gathering. And yet, an unsettling anticipation danced through her. Was she ready to operate as that catalyst? Confronting Michael's ingrained attitudes was one thing, wrestling with her own fears of vulnerability was another. Reflecting upon how profoundly baked goods had influenced her self-perception, she realized the importance of authenticity. What if the true change she sought began with her own willingness to expose her culinary identity without fear of dismissal? Just as she placed the last items in the oven, her phone buzzed again. This time, a group notification that included everyone. Igniting a mix of excitement and anxiety within her, she recognized it was an opening. Everyone would soon witness the collision of ideas, comfort zones clashing in a space she had designed. Texting Rachel back about Michael's message and their exchange, she prepared herself for the impending reality check. As the warmth of the kitchen wrapped around her, she turned her attention back to the muffins, resting momentarily before what could surely be a storm. Would her friends embrace this culinary venture as a means to look beyond their preconceptions? Would they allow laughter to be the antidote to their fears? With one last adjustment to the oven timer, Evelyn stood straight, her resolve strengthening. Tomorrow was a blank canvas painted with uncertainty, and she could already feel the brush of change against it. The time had come to step into the roles they had established, perhaps shattering the very framework of their identities. But as she basked in the glow of her kitchen, her heart raced anew with one burning question. What if, this time, it was more than just muffins? Evelyn woke the next morning, the sun peeking through her kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of last night's preparations. The scent of baked goods still lingered, a fragrant reminder of her resolve. Today was not just another day. It was a chance to redefine her relationships, to expose the layers beneath the surface of her friendships, and most importantly, herself. As she packaged the muffins, each ladleful of batter felt symbolic. In the past, she would have been concerned about how they might be received, critiques, laughter, or nods of uncertain acceptance. But as she tied the last ribbon around the cool bag, an unfamiliar thrill coursed through her veins. This time, it was about more than just the muffins. It was about authenticity and courage. Evelyn recalled the discussion she had with Michael and the way his words had clashed against her own. His traditional mindset had often challenged her views. Today, she would stand firm, ready to confront that clash without allowing it to wobble her confidence. As she carried her creations to the gathering, doubt still lingered, the remnants of an old narrative that told her she wasn't good enough, that her ideas might be foolish in a room full of critics.
Arriving at the meeting place, she spotted her friends, Rachel, poring over her fitness magazine, and Michael, who seemed to be in debate with a bowl of fruit. Their familiar faces made her feel both comforted and exposed. "Evelyn, what's that?" Rachel called, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the muffins. "It's something new," Evelyn replied, grounding her uncertainty in a smile. "Wild rice muffins. I thought we could try something different." She placed the bag down, bracing herself for their reactions. Michael raised an eyebrow, a mixture of skepticism and curiosity etched onto his face. "Wild rice? Really? Are we sure that's a good idea?" The slight edge in his voice felt like a challenge, but today Evelyn was determined not to cower behind her baking sheets. "Michael, I know it sounds strange, but that's exactly the point. It's about stepping beyond our familiar boundaries," she countered, her voice steady. "Why don't we give it a fair shot?" He shifted, crossing his arms and staring at the muffin bag as if he could dissect them from a distance. Rachel's laughter interrupted the tension. "Come on, Michael, you love carbs. What's the harm in trying?" Evelyn's heart raced. Was she overstepping? Did she have the right to expect her friends to fall in line with her values? These thoughts momentarily stalled her confidence, but she remembered her resolve. "What if this is an opportunity for you to experience something transformative?" she thought, letting that idea bolster her courage. The muffins were shared, and as they took tentative bites, she studied their expressions closely. Rachel chewed thoughtfully, while Michael's frown began to soften. A flicker of acceptance kindled hopes she hadn't expected. "Okay, I admit it, this is actually good," Michael relented, wiping crumbs from his chin. "See," Evelyn beamed, her anxiety morphing into warmth. "Sometimes you have to challenge the status quo to find something delightful. It's the same with diets and lifestyles. Embracing new ideas can be hard, but—" Michael interjected. "I get it, but that doesn't mean the old ways should be discarded entirely." His tone shifted to a more open dialogue rather than confrontation, and Evelyn felt the stirrings of respectful engagement. She took a deep breath, realizing this was her moment to dig deeper, to show them that this journey was about more than taste. It was about learning, evolving, and transforming together. But just as she started sharing her thoughts on how their dietary habits mirrored their broader attitudes towards life, Rachel's phone buzzed with an urgent message. Eyes darted to the screen, and for a moment the conversation stuttered, suspended in uncertainty. What now? Evelyn thought, irritation flaring. They were on the brink of something meaningful, but was it about to be interrupted? As Rachel read aloud the latest health fad to avoid, she couldn't shake the discomfort that flickered in her gut. Was it truly about nourishment, or merely another trend to latch onto? And who would lead the discourse that would reshape their perspectives? Evelyn's pulse quickened again. Today had sparked a shift, but would they be ready to grapple with the implications of their choices moving forward? This gathering was turning into an arena of ideas, and she prepared herself for a deeper truth, one that might unearth old wounds and reveal astonishing insights about their friendships and their lives. What more would they discover if the conversation veered deeper than they anticipated? With the lingering taste of muffins on their tongues, the group faced an unexpected crossroad. Evelyn felt the tension between nostalgia and newfound perspectives, a palpable energy fueling the air around them. Rachel had just shared a headline that threatened to reapply the stigma around dietary choices, and Evelyn realized they were now on the brink of something transformative. "Let's not just treat this as another diet trend," Evelyn said, gripping her mug tightly. "This moment is about more than avoiding certain foods. It's an invitation to reevaluate what we've always thought about nourishment." Michael, the skeptic, met her gaze. The challenge hung in the air. Are we really prepared to question our traditions? You know how important those memories are to us. Evelyn nodded, her thoughts crystallizing. Of course, our food history is rich, but food can evolve, just like we do. It's important we embrace change instead of being daunted by it. Let's look at these muffins as more than just a meal. Consider them a stepping stone toward a healthier relationship with what we consume. This time, Rachel chimed in. Actually, I appreciate the effort you're making, Evelyn. It's bold to step outside our comfort zones. It reflects growth. She glanced at Michael, who seemed to weigh Evelyn's words, his skeptical facade less rigid. Evelyn's heart raced. Had she finally planted the seed of curiosity in her friends? Exactly. This is an opportunity for all of us. Let's dive into the reasons why we've relied on traditional comforts and how we can blend those values with new insights about health. A moment of silence enveloped them, each face a canvas of contemplation. Slowly, the tension began to lift, as if Evelyn's words had dispersed the storm clouds of worry that had hung over her friends. Okay, let's explore that, Michael agreed, leaning in.
What do you think is preventing us from exploring these healthier alternatives? That question cracked open the floodgates. They engaged in spirited conversation, dissecting memories of their favorite meals, but now with an emphasis on balance and nourishment. Evelyn illuminated recipes that honored their roots while introducing healthier elements. And the dialogue took flight. Old fears and lingering complacency began to unravel into threads of new ideas. What began as an unsteady foundation transformed before her eyes. Each dialogue unveiled layers of connection. They reminisced about meals shared, emotions evoked, and the connection between food and identity. They explored the narratives shaped by their favorites while navigating conversations that once felt taboo. Evelyn felt a surge of validation and relief wash over her as their conversations deepened. Here they were, her friends, grappling with the complexities around food choices, and she was guiding them. No longer did she stand alone at the edge of their familiar territory. She had become their bridge into uncharted waters, a reminder that growth bloomed from honesty and deep-rooted bonds. As dessert plates emptied, Michael leaned back, a smile transforming his expression. You know what? I've been thinking. Maybe instead of focusing on what we're losing, it's time we acknowledge what we can gain. We can still celebrate our traditions without sacrificing our health. That's the spirit, Evelyn exclaimed, feeling a rush of joy. The validation she sought was blossoming in real time, solidifying her resolve to embrace change without losing her roots. By the time their gathering wrapped up, the air was thick with laughter and acceptance. They shared tentative agreements on future gatherings, co-crafting healthy variations of their cherished recipes together. Evelyn's confidence grew as her friendships transformed alongside her culinary creativity. With each connecting moment, she achieved more than just approval for her muffins. She proved she could lead a conversation essential for healing and growing together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple, she reflected on the day's success. Evelyn had accomplished not just a personal triumph of taste, but a profound transformation within her relationships. She stood at the juncture of progress and tradition, firmly rooted in a newfound conviction. Growth often resided within vulnerability, honesty, and shared experiences. Confidence surged through her as she packed up the remaining muffins, her heart brimming with satisfaction. No longer was she merely a baker. She had become an advocate for health, an educator in both food and friendship, and a proponent of balance. She felt solid confidence rising within her, a testament to her journey and an exciting threshold to new beginnings. As she closed the kitchen door behind her, preparing to step out into the world she had so carefully crafted, a final thought echoed in her mind. This was only the beginning. Every new conversation ignited the potential for transformation, and she was ready to embrace it all. Now is your moment. If you found inspiration in Evelyn's journey of transformation, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss a single exclusive emotional story again. Click that bell for all notifications. Leave a like now. It truly fuels our creative spirit and feeds the algorithm so others can discover their own path of growth. Comment with your thoughts and reactions. What did Evelyn's story teach you about change? And share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to uplift someone's journey. Let's spread the message of transformation far and wide.